William Burroughs. William Burroughs was born in 1914 and he lived into his 80s. In some respects, this was incredible considering his 12-year addiction to heroin. Habit note, Burroughs claimed his addiction actually slowed down his aging process. Burroughs and his wife had an alternative relationship which was based on drugs, cynicism, and a sense of existentialist despair. Joan was arrested once and confined in Bellevue Mental Hospital. She was addicted to bennies or Benzedrine, which is speed, and they lived for a time on a farm in New Waverly, Texas, and then in a house in New Orleans. Their oldest child, a daughter, was Joan's child from a previous marriage. They had a son together named Billy. Burroughs' New Orleans house and life is outlined in On the Road. Burroughs was heavily addicted to morphine at the time. As depicted in On the Road, Burroughs would sit most of the day in his chair, stoned, shooting empty Benzedrine caps with an air gun. He would rail against the government and then perhaps tie up one of his cats and hang it from the ceiling. Burroughs' morphine view of the world was often cynical and paranoid. This is reflected in his writing. After getting busted on drug charges in New Orleans, Burroughs fled with his wife and children to Mexico City. In Mexico, he began work on his first book, Junkie, which describes the life of a heroin addict. In 1952, in Mexico, Burroughs accidentally shot and killed his wife. He was arrested for murder, but never formally charged. The children were sent to live with their grandparents. Kerouac visited Burroughs in Mexico City during this time period, and Kerouac wrote a volume of poetry titled Mexico City Blues during this time. In 1953, Junkie was published, and after a stay in South America, Burroughs settled down in Tangiers, Morocco, and began work on his most famous work, Naked Lunch. In 1957, he went through treatment for his addiction. Naked Lunch was published in 1959 in Paris, and it was not until 1962 that the book was published in America. It was immediately banned in Boston for obscenity. This ban was later lifted, of course, as Burroughs' friends and literary critics rallied to his defense.